The majority of volcanoes in the world form along the boundaries of Earth's tectonic plates, massive expanses of our planet's lithosphere that continually shift, bumping into one another. When tectonic plates collide, one often plunges deep below the other in what's known as a subduction zone. As the descending landmass sinks deep into the Earth, temperatures and pressures climb, releasing water from the rocks. The water slightly reduces the melting point of the overlying rock, forming magma that can work its way to the surface, the spark of life to reawaken a slumbering volcano. Not all volcanoes are related to subduction, however. Another way volcanoes can form is what's known as hotspot volcanism. In this situation, a zone of magmatic activity, or a hotspot, in the middle of a tectonic plate can push up through the crust to form a volcano. Although the hotspot itself is thought to be largely stationary, the tectonic plates continue their slow march, building a line of volcanoes or islands on the surface. This mechanism is thought to be behind the Hawaii volcanic chain. Psychology has saturated practically all fields of human behavior even though it's very new compared to other sciences. Psychology's impact has started to be felt in industries, guidance centers, business, clinics and education, and it is no longer just a subject of academic interests. Depending on their field of specializations, psychologists engage in many things. For example, experimental psychology deals with experimental methods to study human behavior like how an individual reacts to sensory stimuli, learn and remember things and events, or their actions based on the organic needs or due to their desire for status in society. Physiological psychology deals with the relationships between bodily behavior and processes. Some other specializations in psychology are social psychology, developmental psychology, clinical psychology, counseling psychology, etc. The desire to understand the psychological processes by which a man lives is something that he harbored ever since he was able to think. Several psychologists has followed the Pavlovian line of thought and studied animal psychology and experimented upon the phenomenon of resistance, avoidance, discrimination, reinforcements. Numerous psychologists are also working on psychophysiological studies of wakefulness and sleep. Psychology has touched practically all aspects of human and animal behavior both from applied and theoretical views, almost all over the world.
Plagiarism is presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own, with or without their consent, by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement. All published and unpublished material, whether in manuscript, printed or electronic form, is covered under this definition. Plagiarism may be intentional or reckless, or unintentional. Under the regulations for examinations, intentional or reckless plagiarism is a disciplinary offense. Students will benefit from taking an online course which has been developed to provide a useful overview of the issues surrounding plagiarism and practical ways to avoid it. The necessity to acknowledge others' work or ideas applies not only to text, but also to other media, such as computer code, illustrations, graphs etc. It applies equally to published text and data drawn from books and journals, and to unpublished text and data, whether from lectures, theses or other students' essays. You must also attribute text, data, or other resources downloaded from websites. The best way of avoiding plagiarism is to learn and employ the principles of good academic practice from the beginning of your university career. Avoiding plagiarism is not simply a matter of making sure your references are all correct, or changing enough words so the examiner will not notice your paraphrase. It is about deploying your academic skills to make your work as good as it can be. If execution is the most severe punishment, it will be the greatest deterrent. The theory of deterrent states quite clearly that the aims of capital punishment and other punishments in general, is to strike terror into the heart of a wrongdoer or malefactor in order that he might be brought to his senses and be taught in future to obey the law. In other words, deterrent is but an instrument of reformation. According to Ernest van den Haag, justice, a rational but non-utilitarian purpose of punishment, requires that it be proportioned to the full gravity of the crime. However, it is obvious that in the case of a death penalty, the wrongdoer would have no chance at all to reform. Capital punishment would thus act as a deterrent in the sense that others are deterred from committing the crime from which the criminal is seen by society to suffer. For this to be most effective, it has been argued that capital punishment should be carried out publicly, as this would allow the spectators to witness the pain of the death penalty, and would thus deter them from crime. The basis of this theory is founded on two assumptions. Firstly, the potential offender will act rationally in his own best interest and seek to avoid pain. Secondly, that the offender will remember past experiences and anticipate the consequences of his intended future action. For these reasons, life imprisonment and the death penalty have been almost universally used to instill the necessary element of fear in the minds of potential wrongdoers and criminals.
Data visualization is the representation of data or information in a graph, chart, or other visual format. It communicates relationships of the data with images. This is important because it allows trends and patterns to be more easily seen. With the rise of big data upon us, we need to be able to interpret increasingly larger batches of data. Machine learning makes it easier to conduct analyses such as predictive analysis, which can then serve as helpful visualizations to present. But data visualization is not only important for data scientists and data analysts, it is necessary to understand data visualization in any career. We need data visualization because a visual summary of information makes it easier to identify patterns and trends than looking through thousands of rows on a spreadsheet. It's the way the human brain works. Since the purpose of data analysis is to gain insights, data is much more valuable when it is visualized. Even if a data analyst can pull insights from data without visualization, it will be more difficult to communicate the meaning without visualization. Charts and graphs make communicating data findings easier even if you can identify the patterns without them. In undergraduate business schools, students are often taught the importance of presenting data findings with visualization. Without a visual representation of the insights, it can be hard for the audience to grasp the true meaning of the findings. For example, rattling off numbers to your boss won't tell them why they should care about the data, but showing them a graph of how much money the insights could save/make them is sure to get their attention.